And welcome back, everyone. For those of you that are new, my name is Jenny. I'm here with Joanna, and we have this fabulous channeled session, back and forth Q&A situation that we are doing every other week. We were advised by the Council of Nine, all the guides up there, even YESHUA showed up last time, to ask these soul deep level questions. And we appreciate all the feedback we've been getting. If you want to hear the whole story, how it all began, go back, watch the videos. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Joanna even deeper into trance than she already is when she does her amazing videos here on YouTube. I get her into trance and then I start asking the Q&As. So I'm going to put her into trance. We'll fast forward all this and then we're going to start asking the questions. Yes.
Yes.
Who are we speaking with today?
The council.
Hello, Council. We're so happy to have you back.
Hello, Jenny.
Hello. We wanted to ask you some questions to begin with about ego. Is that okay?
Yes, it is.
How can humans learn to identify ego versus heart-led thoughts?
First and foremost, ego's thoughts live predominantly in your head. So when you are hearing thoughts, you are likely hearing your own thoughts. Thoughts that are predominantly produced by the thinking mind. When you shift your awareness to your heart space, you will notice that there is a certain level of space or peace that is not in the thinking mind. When you are out of the thinking mind and you are in this more open heart space, this is what resonates with you the most, because this is the gateway or the door, if you will, to other dimensions. Once beyond the dimension you find yourself in right now. So to simply answer your question, move from your ego-based thoughts into the space of your heart. Notice how you feel, and from that space, ask your questions. And notice what you receive in return in terms of guidance.
Okay. Is it important to have a complete ego death? And what is an ego death?
Without your ego, you would not know how you identify yourself. And that is the nature of you being in a human experience. You need some way of identifying yourself, otherwise you don't know who you are. And that is a very difficult place to be when you are in this human body. The ego allows you to make the right choices and right decisions for yourself based on your circumstances. So the ego is not only important, but it's also necessary and a big part of your life. It is unnecessary and not advisable to, quote unquote, kill the ego. It is important to distinguish between killing the ego and no longer identifying with the ego.
Mm.
You can and will continue to have your ego, but you will allow yourself to not identify with it as much or identify with it less, which means if you don't identify wholly with your ego, you then start to begin to identify with something other than that. And guess what that is?
What is it? Do
It's
tell.
the truth that pervades everything and everyone all at the same time. And that is that everything and nothing exists all at once. Your ego has no capability of grasping that.
Mm-hmm.
It needs something to hold on to. And that is fine. It can hold on to whatever it wants to hold on to as long as you don't identify with whatever it is that your ego is holding on to. Notice how we are saying this, your ego, which is not you.
Okay. So what is me then? Is it more my heart?
You are an awareness. Try that out for a size.
Would
The
you please
question then
illustrate?
becomes, what is awareness?
Yes.
We could use another word for it and simply call it consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Consciousness simply is. It has no beginning and it has no end. And it cannot really be defined by the human standard. But it is an aspect of you, if you will, that is much bigger than your ego. And this aspect of you simply observes.
Is it true it takes us a while to understand this? It comes with maturity, it comes with life experience in order to not identify so much with the ego.
It comes with your ability to trusting more of what you inherently know to be true inside of you already. The more you identify with your ego, the less you identify with that. What is that, you ask? We choose to call it God.
Mm,
You call it many things. You call it Shiva, you call it consciousness, you call it source. You can call it whatever you want. How you identify with it is the question.
mhm,
Therefore, if you no longer choose to identify with your ego as much, and you begin to identify with this vastness that is you, what does that mean in your life? It means you can be anything you want.
mhm,
Your ego does not understand that. But remember, you are here to have an experience through the eyes of the ego, which is a limitation, but it is not bad. It serves a function.
mhm,
Through your ego experiences, you grow. You understand yourself by that, looking at that which you are not, which again is your ego. So simply saying, identifying your ego makes you look at your ego and go, oh, so this is not me. Oh, so this is not me. Oh, this is not me. And if this is not me, who or what am I? And then a magical moment happens. You begin to ask these questions and you begin to realize that you get to choose how you identify yourself.
mm.
So now it's up to you, not to your ego.
That's so helpful and so well put. My
Does
next
that make
question,
sense?
it makes so much sense. My next question, I feel like you've already answered, but it's more of a question for those of us that are seeking to get out of the ego as much. Because my question was, why do people get trapped in their ego? But I feel you've already answered that. And then my second question was, how do we deal with people like that in our lives?
Specifically, which kinds of people, we
The
would
people
ask.
that get stuck in their ego and it's difficult to be in their energy
Are you asking in terms of you wanting to help them?
in wanting to deal with them. So I don't want to help them and I don't want to change their minds, but I want to
So,
know, what am I supposed to do?
what is the struggle? I would ask. What is the struggle? And what
I'd
is it
say
that
that
you're
it's
trying to change?
difficult to be around them. And so it's difficult to say goodbye.
We would ask first, do you have to be around them?
So I'm asking for people, like, for instance, it's Thanksgiving in the United States this weekend, and for people that have to go home for Thanksgiving dinner and they have to sit there around family and friends that trigger them. What's the best advice for dealing with difficult people like that?
Beautiful question. Really, what you're asking is, how do I avoid feeling blah when I'm surrounded by these people? Would that be fair to say?
Yes, the blah question. Yes.
What we would suggest in this instance, and notice the energy is getting lighter. What we would suggest in this instance is to ask yourself first and foremost, do I want this person here? Because if they're there, likely it's your desire. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. That another question you might want to ask yourself, do I want them to be there? Or are you inviting them out of an obligation?
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
So let's say you are inviting these people out of your obligation, out of the obligation. What is it that you get out of that? What do you get in return? Because you must get something. In other
Hmm.
words, how is it benefiting you? Because you're asking for it.
Hmm.
And there's many ways you can answer that question. Well, I help them feel like they're loved. Would you say that that's a good thing to do?
Yes.
Then we would say, then do it if it feels good. Focus more on giving them your love rather than getting frustrated with that which they cannot give you,
Hmm.
and see how it feels instead.
Hmm.
And what you will notice is that when you focus your attention away from what is not happening that you would rather want to happen, and instead you focus on the real reason why they're there in the first place, it's because you want them to be there for some reason. So it benefits you. You make that choice. The question is, can you be at peace with this choice? And can you find enjoyment in some other ways with a particular person? We are presuming that if you want to hang around somebody like that, there must be something about them you like. Focus on that
Hmm.
and realize that everything else that you're looking for to get from them, they're not going to be able to give you because they're not there yet. And that's okay.
Hmm.
In other words, don't see them for their shortcomings, see them for they could do benefit you.
Yep.
And you'll notice you'll have a lot more peace with that. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's great advice. And speaking of ego death, can we now talk about death? I feel like death is the big fear of most humans. And in my own personal life, I had a shared death experience with my own father, and it wasn't anything fearful at all. It was extremely beautiful. Can you talk a little bit about the death process?
First and foremost, death is misunderstood. It has a lot of fears around it. Death, in actuality, is one of the most peaceful events you will ever go through.
Mhm.
What most people are actually afraid of when it comes to dying is the pain associated with dying. You did not experience the level of pain that you normally would because there was a big part of you that has accepted your father's transition. Did it not? Did it not?
Oh, yes.
And because of that acceptance, you had more peace with what was happening. You were not resisting it. You were not saying, oh, why? You simply understand it as part of the process. And it is what it is. It's a process, and that your father has not disappeared. He simply changed forms, and it was his choice and his decisions, like it or not.
Hmm.
Because of that acceptance, you were not fighting it nearly as much. You were not resisting what was naturally going to happen anyway. So for you, this experience was different.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah, it was a beautiful moment that we shared together.
If every single human knew without any doubt in their mind and in their heart that to die is not necessarily mean to have pain, we would say most people would stop resisting death or fear death nearly as much. Because if death is painless, then what's there to fear?
It's
Does that make
beautiful.
sense?
Yeah, I love it. You're very clear today. I'm loving your messages. They're so clear. They're so relatable.
We
Thank you.
like to be poignant.
I feel like we're getting a good momentum together from these question and answer periods.
Joanna is experiencing much less resistance.
She's experiencing resistance. It doesn't seem
Much,
like it. She's
much less
flowing.
resistance. Much
She
less
has.
resistance.
Let's help her clear that. What's going on there for Joanna? Do you have some advice for her?
She knows what to do.
She sure does. She's amazing. Okay, I've got another doozy for you. I know you can handle it, Council. Narcissism. Can we talk about it? It's everywhere. The knowledge, there's such an increased knowledge of narcissism these days, especially in the last few years. What is it, and why are so many empaths drawn to narcissism, narcissists?
We feel there is so much more attention put on it because it is now somehow easier to identify.
Hmm.
It was not as identifiable before.
Right. I agree with that.
And when you can identify something, you have a tendency to look for it. So every now one is looking, not everyone, but many are looking now for reasons why they are the way they are. And it leads them to certain conclusions. Oh, my mother was like this. That's why I am like this right now. What we would say, yes, that is true. However, the way you are in this moment is your choice and up to you.
Hmm.
The question is, what do you choose to do going forward? And if you get hooked on the idea that you are the way you are because your mother was a narcissist, then you are giving her undue attention, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. In other words, you are feeding that ideology. And when we say ideology, we do not mean to say that this form of behavior is not real. It is. It fundamentally stems from the space of feeling and being a burden and having no value. This is what narcissist feels.
Hmm.
We would say having no value or believing one has no value is very prominent in your world.
Hmm.
So we could say, and some humans may not like this, everyone has a bit of a narcissist in him or her. Everyone does.
Hmm.
How do you feel about that, Jenny?
I agree. Yeah.
Do you
All
fight
all
it?
a
Do
certain
you-
level of it.
Mhm. And that is you saying to yourself, it is okay for me to have this aspect of me, but I don't identify with it.
Ah, back to the ego. Look at that.
Yes. Mhm.
That's amazing. I feel like it's so important for people to get out of their victim stories, and this ties in perfectly. So if you say, "Oh, well, my father was a narcissist and then my husband was a narcissist," and if you stay in that victim story, then that's what you're going to continue to attract for the rest of your life if you're not careful. So how can we get out of our victim stories? What's the best advice?
When you feel into someone's victimhood story, what do you feel they get out of this?
Like validation.
Okay. So if a human needs constant validation and they don't deal with the source of the pain around that validation or invalidation, they will use victimhood to get that. And what you're saying is, how can we help someone no longer be a victim? Well, first and foremost, you have to realize that their being in that victim state is giving them something really important to them. It serves them in some way.
Hmm.
And unless the person realizes how it serves them, they're not going to be able to get out of their victimhood because their victimhood serves them.
Hmm.
The question is, how do I heal so that I no longer have to participate in my victimhood?
Hmm.
Think of it as a game where victimhood is a state, and then there is you. And you get to participate with this state as an energy exchange because you're getting something from it. The moment you identify what you are getting from it is the moment where you likely see choices where you can get that from somewhere else. So rather than being a victim over and over again, one chooses to experience life from a different perspective. But it has to be a conscious choice.
Hmm. Makes
Not
total sense.
everyone, not everyone wants to not be a victim.
Mhm.
Logically, it doesn't make sense, does it?
Right.
But if I need constant validation from you, then that means I constantly have to feel low about myself. As long as I keep feeling low about myself, I'm going to need you to
Mhm.
validate me, right? If I
Yeah.
don't deal with the pain around that, I'm not going to give you up because I need you. I need you to feed me.
Hmm.
So we have to find a way of feeding the source or the pain, the source of the pain in different ways.
Shadow work's a great way to do that, isn't it?
One of the best ways is to face your own darkness.
Yeah. It's funny, Joanna and I are obsessed with shadow work.
This is why you are both here.
Yes. We keep talking about it because it's really such a powerful process.
It is the process, incidentally, one has to go through in order to experience ego death.
Ah, wow. Everything's tying together so beautifully today.
When something that is hidden from your view has a grip on you, then you are a perpetual victim.
Hmm.
When you shed light on that part of you and realize what it's about and begin to differentiate yourself from it, things begin to change. You take your power back. So, shadow work or facing your fears is really about seeing how you limit your own power, albeit unconsciously. And you limit your power, let's say, by what you think and what you believe. If you believe that you are an unworthy person, you are using your power to believe that. How ironic is that?
Mm.
It is only because it's not your conscious doing, that you believe that you don't have a choice, never mind choice. You don't even think there is choice to be had. In other words, facing your shadows opens your eyes to different choices and possibilities. Ones that were always there, only you couldn't see it because of what was holding you back. So facing your shadows is essentially saying to yourself, I will not let myself hold me back anymore. Because it is almost always you holding yourself back, some aspect of you holding you, but it is an aspect of you. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's so powerful. I love talking about it. I feel like that's how we become alchemists. We alchemize the energy and turn it into something different.
You turn it into something more.
Mm,
Number one. Number two, you're no longer as divided within yourself. And then when there is no division within you, when there is oneness, we talk about it often, there is peace, or a lot more peace.
mhm,
We always say the world outside of you is merely a reflection of your inner world, of everyone's inner worlds collectively.
mm,
If you want more peace in the world, it has to be reflected from you. It's not
mhm,
the other way around. You create your reality. You create your world. Do you realize that? Each and every day, you create your worlds with what you feel, with what you think with what you imagine. You are a generator.
mhm,
You generate life. What is life? What is life anyway?
mhm,
You experience life through your perceptions, through your experiences. That's what life is to you.
mm,
Even though everyone experiences life, everyone's life is experienced differently. My life is experienced differently than your life, simply because of my current perspective. And you have your current perspective.
mhm,
One isn't better, the other one isn't worse. It's all the same, it's just different perspectives.
mhm,
When you do shadow work, when you, let's call it work on the inside, it is all about ultimately shifting your perspective of who you think you are,
mhm,
which affects what you think and what you do and what you express into this world. Shadows keep you away from that to a certain extent.
mhm,
It's not a good or bad thing, it just simply is part of this experience. But you are choosing to have more opulent experiences, bigger experience, more profound experiences. In order for that to happen, there has to be light shed on the shadow so that it can help you achieve that. Does that
mhm.
make sense?
Yes, I love it. Last time we chatted, Yeshua joined us. Is he available to talk to us today?
I just heard, tell him I'm ready.
There he is. Okay, first question, Yeshua. Thank you, first of all, for joining us. Last time something was mentioned about females being viewed less than still. What did you mean by that?
It's a tricky question. It's quite ironic that two females are talking about it. Let's take the idea of church, for example. How many females do you see in the church?
Mm-hmm. Not too many.
Why do you propose that is?
Because the patriarchy still runs our world.
Because humans think of God as a male.
Yeah, Yeshua showed up. You're so fun. Okay, thank you.
Always light.
Okay, but this is not light, but I know that it'll still be fun with you. Okay,
God
there's
is not
a
a
couple people
male.
out
God
there.
is not a female. God is all there is. It cannot be identified.
Yes.
Now, if we, for a moment, thought that tomorrow everyone's beliefs change, and God is all of a sudden a female, do you think things would change in the church world?
Hmm.
That's what I meant when I said if I showed up as a female, you wouldn't take me as seriously.
Yes. Yeah, that's how I took it, but we did get some feedback from that last podcast that maybe it was an entity or something. Can we speak to entities and demons? And I know that's taught in Christianity that you can get a demon attached to you or an entity attached to your energy. Can we speak on that? Is that real? Is that true?
It is a multi-layered conversation. Are there ill-willed energies out there? Yes. Are they grabbing onto you and holding you back? Not unless you let them.
Hmm.
Now, here's an interesting conundrum. If they are to overpower you, but we're saying only if you let them, what does that mean to you?
Hmm. If you give your power away.
Well, you're certainly lending to the understanding that these are more powerful than you,
Hmm.
and they're not. They may have some fear tactics, yes, which do affect a human, but the more you give it power, the more power it has over you.
So the more you give yourself.
One of the ways you can, let's use the word solve that, is to keep remembering who you are.
Hmm.
Because the lower energies feed predominantly on fear. The more fear you hold within you, the more you are almost like a hook to that energy. If you hold love in your heart and you live your life with best intentions and do your best,
Hmm.
the likelihood of working with such energy is not very likely because you cannot give them what they need because you are vibrating at a different vibration, a different frequency. On the other hand, if you carry a lot of fear within you, that is a window of opportunity for these types of beings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
We are not saying this to scare you,
Hmm.
but that is not our intention. We're merely saying, acknowledge and just pay attention.
Yes. So last time we talked with Yeshua, you encouraged us to laugh more, and I find myself laughing more. Such great advice from you. I actually ran into somebody the other day who's not a large fan of me. And when I said hello and she couldn't say hello back, I actually laughed. Like I couldn't help but laugh. So that might seem rude, but it actually felt good. And maybe, just maybe that doesn't sound like Christ consciousness, but in the moment it felt like it.
Well, you chose for that person to no longer affect you the way it did.
Right.
And you made that conscious choice. We would say that's a good thing.
Yes.
We don't feel you were making a mockery out of this person.
No.
So you can feel good about your choice.
Thank you. We got to keep laughing. So along these lines, Yeshua, for someone who's on the spiritual journey, is it important to be nice, or does being nice
Define
have
nice.
nothing to do with spiritual?
Define nice, please.
Define nice, yeah.
Mhm.
Just always being nice and listening and being always just being there for them, even if they're not nice to you, and giving, giving, giving when they take, take, take.
Are you in that moment being real?
No,
Then don't do
that's
it.
not being very nice.
Then don't do it.
Yes.
Spirituality, some might say, is all about you being true to the true you. Your true you has no need to be nice because it has no need to be validated. Does
Yeah.
that answer your question?
Yeah, back to that. I love that. Everything's tying together so beautifully today.
We are not saying don't try to be nice. We're not saying don't be nice. What we're saying is if you choose to be nice, be real.
Hmm.
Otherwise, you're pretending. And if you're pretending, then you're not being true you.
Hmm.
How does that help you or the other person?
Hmm.
You're wearing a mask and you have your reasons for it based on fear. So, to be on a spiritual journey, just so we're clear, we're all on a spiritual journey. What you are referring to is your conscious connection to your own spirit. When you let your spirit guide you, you will have no need to be nice because your spirit does not need a validation.
Mm,
You identify with the ego less, remember?
that's so beautiful. That's so clear. I love that. Okay, so we're in new moon energy this weekend, and new moons are the perfect time to set your intentions, write them down, and master the art of manifestation. Can you give us some hot tips on mastering the art of manifestation?
First and foremost, get really excited of what the universe has to give you.
Mm,
Get excited about that. What? Let it be a surprise. Remember, the universe, as you call it, always wants to give to you. It has no other option but to give to you. It cannot do anything else, only to give to you. Now, your ego may have many questions around that, but remember, your ego is attached to different beliefs and conditionings. So you will get exactly what you need from the universe. That's a given. May not always be exactly what you want. And what you want is usually something you don't have. So when you keep focusing on what you don't have, you're not doing yourself any favors. Instead, participate with the universe giving you more by saying, yes, I can't wait what's in store for me next,
mm,
with that attitude. And then watch what happens. You are coming into this energy with openness. You're saying yes. And with that kind of frequency, with that kind of vibration, you're like a child that's at awe of any experience. Have you ever seen a child with an agenda?
mm, right.
Manifest from that space of having no agenda. We don't mean to say don't desire, don't want. What we mean to say is desire, want it, but be open to how it comes to you and how it's expressed.
Hmm.
Perhaps you're desiring to have a trip and you are wanting the universe, let's say, to give you money for a trip. Well, what if it's going to come in a different way? What if a friend all of a sudden says to you, hey, Jenny, you want to go on a trip with me? It's all paid. End
Mhm.
result is the same. The arrival, slightly different package. But you're not objecting, are you?
Yeah.
No. Because you know the end result is what you want ultimately. How it comes to you, that's all in your head.
Yeah.
Let go of the thinking. Don't let go of all your thinking. Let go of the overthinking. The how it's going to come to you, let the universe handle that. Your job is to believe that in what you want. You must believe in what you want. Hence the saying, be careful what you ask for.
Hmm.
If your energy says, I can't, I can't, and your head says, I want, guess who's going to win?
Hmm.
Your energy, because that's the magnet. So it's all about alignment, yet again.
Hmm.
Manifest from the space of your heart, less so from the space of your head, and then see what happens.
Excellent. Is Joanna okay for a few more questions?
Yes?
Okay. So Pluto, the planet, is having quite a hot minute because Pluto just moved into Aquarius. It was in Capricorn for 16 years and it was causing quite a ruckus. So, what is Pluto in Aquarius bringing? What are the new children being born in this era going to be bringing? What is Pluto going to be doing in Aquarius? Do you have any tips on that?
First and foremost, this alignment shows up with revealing a lot more shadows, and it feels heavy. It's Joanna speaking. I'm just explaining what I'm being shown. It's easier that way.
Okay.
It's like this energy landed on planet Earth and it just went boom. And it, with its landing, brought a certain reverberation to actual planet, which is interesting. And it brought with it a shadow. I see a large amounts of shadows, and people running away trying to escape these shadows, but they can't. It's a shadow. You either face it or you don't. So it almost feels to me like this alignment, it's not that it introduces shadows, it's that it exposes shadows.
Mm,
And it feels like it's a heavy energy. And I don't mean in terms of bad, but heavy. There's a certain heaviness to it. And I feel like it's everyone eventually, I don't know how long it's going to take, but everyone eventually is going to face their shadows. It's going to happen eventually, everyone. Not everyone is going to do it at the same time, but the facing of the shadows is necessary to release the resistance of what's happening right now. And there is apparently a lot of resistance that's happening right now. And I'm seeing an image of like a one world splitting into two worlds. And it's not physical. I think it's metaphor. And there's a resistance. There's a resistance. It's like this old world wants to keep this new world from becoming new world. But that new world, it's almost like it has its own energy, it has its own vibration, and it's going to quote unquote separate itself from the old. And what I see is this new world becoming this beautiful, vibrant planet, and this other world just kind of sort of diminishing eventually into nothing. That is the vision that I'm seeing.
mm,
And this is not an overnight thing. It's a long process. But I feel like we are at the beginning of it. based on how long the process is, because I feel like it takes a couple thousand years, and
Mm.
we've been in it for a bit. So it's not a slow process.
So,
Incidentally, I'm supposed to share this with you.
yeah.
Before we got on camera and I was meditating, I feel I got a glimpse of our future world. And it felt about 200 years from now. And I literally saw crafts hovering, and people were hovering cars, not driving cars. But what was really interesting is that there was a completely different field in the world where people were so much more kinder to each other. And there was just everyone was living in this harmony. It was they were all on different levels, but there was this harmony. There was this natural tendency to, hey, can I help you? It's just I'm like, wow, we're not there right now. And I get the feel of about 200 years. So I believe I was shown the trajectory to where we're going.
Beautiful.
So seeing that, it also talks about technology. It's obvious because technology is moving at a record speed right now. But based on the connection between people on different levels, quote unquote, different levels, that versus what we have today, I can confidently say it's almost black and white. That's how it feels. That's
No
the
joke.
difference. So it's
It's no joke what Pluto does for us.
okay. Yeah, I'm just going to open my eyes because I feel like it's easier. Yeah, again, I don't know anything about astrology. In fact, astrology questions scare Joanna here, but this is what I'm being. So I believe that I was being shown
Yeah.
snippets of what's to come. To me, that's not predicting, but that's a really good sign to me. That's not gloom and doom. That's a really good sign to me. Now, I also know that in order for us to get there, we have to be here now. Ugh. And that has to be addressed. And that's the idea of shadow, like really going. I believe every person will eventually take that self-inquiry, but it's going to happen, some people this lifetime, some people another lifetime. But that is ultimately, it's when every person chooses to go inside and no longer looking for answers on the outside, which when each and every person starts to realize that at the very depth of who they are God experiencing itself, everything is going to change.
Yes.
Um, so I don't feel gloom and doom. In fact, I'm actually kind of excited. I won't be around to see it, but I'm very excited. But I also know that this has to take place, and there's a lot of breaking of the old rules happening right now. And this breaking of these old rules is actually creating more division right now. So it looks like more division is being created. I don't feel that the division hasn't been there before. It just wasn't as visible. Now it's just out in the open. It's out in the open. That's what I'm seeing. But apparently, it's a very necessary process to go through.
It's amazing because high vibing Aquarius, if you're in the high vibe, there's a shadow vibe of every zodiac sign, and there's a high vibe of every zodiac sign. So the highest vibe of Aquarius is the great humanitarian, the greatest good for all, right? So we're all being encouraged now to make decisions and choices that is the greatest good for all. So I give you an example. You need to divorce your husband. Okay, put it out there. Okay, I know I need to divorce my husband here. What is the greatest good for all? We're talking about him, the children, the in-laws, me, everyone. What is the greatest good for all in going forward with the divorce? So it's those kind of questions that we all have to ask ourselves with Pluto going through
Hmm.
Aquarius. We need to be the great humanitarian and we need to be thinking of everyone.
Yeah, and I feel that during that inquiry, the ego gets a lot of beating because let's face it, the ego wants to be right. It's just nature of ego. Let's not beat around the bush. It's okay. It's okay. The ego does not want to admit to a mistake. The ego does not like looking at its faults. I don't have any fault. It's it's not its fault that it is the way it is. It's just, but being honest with yourself is fucking hard. It's hard. I'm thinking, why is it so hard? It's like facing yourself is not easy. It's not easy, but I feel we're all ultimately going to have to do it. So yeah, when you were talking about the humanitarian, and we have to bypass the ego. No, don't do this because this person did it to you. No, let him suffer. We get
Yeah.
that's at the end of the day, we're just playing more into that,
The
right?
victim
It's like,
story.
yes, yes, it's the saying, and I am not a religious person, as everybody knows by now, but I believe Jesus was saying when somebody hits you or slaps you on the cheek, you turn another cheek. And I always understood it as, well, why would I want somebody to hit me again? But no, what he's saying is rise above it, rise above it. Don't play into it, rise above it. If you need to protect yourself, yes, do whatever necessary. But it's rising above it. I believe that's what it means, right? And
And that's what we're all being encouraged. That's what Pluto is, helping us transform, is how we can get in to that highest self, our highest self, and the greatest good for all. Because Aquarius truly is the genius mind. So Mercury rules Gemini, and that's getting really, really smart, right? But then Aquarius and Uranus rules the higher mind. That's our higher self. What would our higher
mm,
self do? There's
mm,
those questions that people always ask, great spiritual teachers always ask, what would love do? That's exactly what
yes,
Pluto is getting us to ask. What would love do?
would love to. Exactly. Exactly. Such a simple question to
It
ask.
is so simple, yet it's,
Yeah,
again, like
yes.
you're wrapped up in your ego and you have to tell your
Hmm.
story and you need to stay in the victimhood. It's not
Yeah,
easy, but it is very simple.
no, yeah. As Joanna, I ask myself, what would Yeshua do? I already know what he would do. It's like, duh, I already know. Like, do I even have to ask? I just know. You just know, right? You just know. Like when you're in tune, you just know. Your ego wants to do one thing, but it's like, yeah, no, I know. I know. I know. I believe at the end of the day, deep inside, we're all wired to love. I believe that. We're all wired naturally. Now, it just depends how far we moved away from it by identifying with our ego, with our shadows, and all of that stuff, right? And some people would disagree, but I believe that at the very core, at the very essence, everyone is a good person. I know that not everybody will, some people will say, that is just not, how can Hitler be a good person? No, no, what he did sucked like motherfucker. Up, no, bad. But that wasn't his essence. That wasn't the God part of him. He got lost in the ego. Yeah. The God part of him is still intact. I can't believe I'm talking about Hitler out of all people. Good example though, right?
Example.
Yeah.
Good
Because I mean,
example, and good for us, for all of us to embrace this Pluto. It's Pluto's having a hot minute, like I was saying before you came out of trance. Pluto's having a minute. And so we're all talking about Pluto, and Pluto seeks to transform us. And we've talked on these sessions before that that's what people fear the most is change. And
the
that
ego, that death.
and
Yeah.
so that's what we're all,
Yeah.
and we keep talking about shadow work every single time we do these
Hmm.
sessions. So there's a repeat. I'm noticing repeated messages, and I think it's so important. And I wrote the book, right? You've got the book. The
Yes.
book on
Yes.
shadow work.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
important to
Yeah.
face the shadows so that they no longer rule us.
Sometimes, as Joanna, I think to myself, it almost feels like I'm talking about the same thing all the time, over and
Right,
over and over and over again.
right.
And it's like I'm not saying anything new. No, nor should I mean I don't. But basically, what I'm trying to say is the message I got is like you just got to keep talking about it. You just got to keep talking about it. You just got to keep talking about it because this is it's like it's what's in right now, not as a fad, but this is what needs to happen.
This is it.
This is what needs to happen. It's to rise in our vibration is really to identify ourselves less with fear, less with gloom and doom, less. Does that all exist? Yes, but we don't identify with it nearly as much. It's almost that separation from the ego. We still have it, but we're not identifying ourselves as that,
Yes.
which is very hard for the brain to kind of grasp because it's not something that you just tell yourself. It's an actual experience. Like for me, it feels like there is an aspect of me that is is like that I'm plastered by this ego, and all of a sudden this layer becomes aware. I become aware of this layer. It's like, oh, this is part of this is oh wow, this is what I identified as, and there is this me looking at it. And it loses its power when I look at it.
Yes. That's the
Yeah,
power of shadow work.
yeah. And it changes on cellular level. It's not just a thought, it's energetic.
Oh,
Yeah, I
love
love
that.
shadow work. I love
It's, I know
shadow
we
work.
keep talking about it, and I think we're supposed to be. And so Pluto is the furthest planet for us, and when it hits, we notice, right? It hits and it's generational. And so both you and I were born in the Pluto in Libra generation. So we were the cluster of souls that came in during Pluto in Libra. And so we all agreed to change it up in the world regarding relationships. Okay? Yeah, everyone we know with Pluto and Libra has changed the face of relationships. Okay?
Okay.
So the children being born in Pluto and Aquarius, we're going to learn so much from them as well. And we've learned so much from the children of each generation, right? And what we can
Hmm.
already see with Pluto going into Aquarius is this extreme need. You saw the visual of shadows on the planet. We're seeing it in the work that we do, the clients that we have, that shadow work is needed. And we do need to be the great humanitarian. We can all be that higher self, be that water bearer like Aquarius is, right? If we can raise the vibration, like you were saying.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I feel like today's session, everything, all the messages were brought together so succinctly, so beautifully.
I got to share this with you because I'm being guided to share. I had a client yesterday. Obviously, I won't go into names, but it was one of the very few instances when I saw this on such a magnitude. She in front of me had a moment of remembering, and it was such a profound energetic process that her body had to contort, her body had to move in order to accumulate this massive energy coming into her body because it's an energetic upgrade. Oof. And I've been working with her for a few months. And it was so profound. Um, it was so profound that it's like I had to hold the energy because it was almost too much. And I
Mm,
just kept saying, it's okay, just keep saying yes, you're safe, because it can feel scary because you literally like something is coming out of you that's profoundly overwhelming and it's scary and you don't know what to do with it and you can't help it, you can't control it, though you could if you wanted to. And your ego is like, what's happening? And you have that moment of remembering. I was almost crying. Well, I was crying at one point.
wow.
That
That's
was the
such
effect of the
powerful work.
shadow work that we've done. Yeah. And only a few months. And it was like to witness that was like, that's why I do what I do.
This is
Yes, this is
doing.
this is it.
This is it.
This is it. And all of a sudden, she opened, like her eyes were rolling to her back of her head, and all of a sudden,
Wow.
then after a while, she opened her eyes and she was like,
Oh,
everything is different, yet everything stayed the same.
Yes.
Something happened
That's that
inside.
new earth that you're talking about. Like it's not a
Yeah, 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 yeah,
physical,
yeah,
not a
yeah.
physical earth.
No, 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 no. That's it. That's it. That's it right there. Thank you for saying that. Yes, because it's not a physical thing. It was just a, yeah, that it was I live for this stuff. It's like, oh,
Yes.
it's it's a drug of mine. That's why I love what I do.
But just to say for the people listening, it doesn't always happen that way for everyone.
No, 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 no,
You
no,
know, like
no,
it's
no,
that was
no.
profound for her,
Correct,
and there will be
correct,
many more profound stories like that.
correct.
But for
Absolutely.
others, it doesn't have to be that visceral,
No,
you know? And
right. No, no.
a mindset shift can change everything,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah.
know?
Hers happened to be this potent, this almost like amplified because she's been asking for it and she's ready for it. If
Yes,
she was not ready for it, it would fry her circuits.
right. Yes,
So, and that was probably part of her soul contract. But yes, to your point, not everybody experiences it that way. And oftentimes it's much more gradual. It doesn't have to be like that. This was just an example of what happens when you do shadow work. Eventually, you get to that space without the, But at the end of the day,
yep,
shadow work is about no longer identifying with fears or limitations, right? And that is massive shock to the ego because that's what ego is made of. It's made up of all these different ways we identify ourselves. So
yes.
to have that awakening moments, it's inevitable that your ego is going to get a kick in the ass. It's just how it happens. If it's gently, if it's a little bit not as gentle. I myself say go big or go home, but then I have to often sometimes I say, oh, okay, let me just slow down a little
Be
bit.
careful what you wish for.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Like some people say, oh, I want to experience ego death. I'm like, oh God, you have no idea what you're asking for. Please don't do that.
I
And
know.
you've never done any inner work and you're saying, I just want to have ego death because it is, yeah, be careful what you ask for because you're going to get your ass kicked and you're not going to be ready and that's going to hurt like motherfucker.
For myself, I think my story will resonate with many is I've had many dark nights of the soul, like many, not just one. Some people have just one, and I
Mm,
totally
I,
believe them, and I hear their
yeah,
stories and they're powerful.
yeah,
But for most people out there, we have to have several.
yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I believe that too. I can clearly remember some that lasted longer than others. There was one in particular, probably about 10 years ago now, where I remember where I was and I was questioning everything, how I work, what do I do, my relationship, like everything. And
Yes.
it was scary because I didn't know what was going to happen. Like it was scary. It was scary. It's like you're in a relationship, everything is fine, and all of a sudden you're questioning it, and you don't even know why you're questioning it. It's like, why am I? Does that mean there's something wrong if I'm questioning? It's like there's all these, and I was in it for, I would probably say, good 6 months to a year, when it was like, ah, and then I moved through it, and each time I move through everything just gets better and better and better, right?
You have to. It's like the phoenix
Yeah,
rising from the ashes, that
yeah,
Pluto rules the phoenix rising from the ashes. So it's like literally you've reached rock bottom and there is nowhere else to go but up. And that's the phoenix, right?
yeah. Yeah, I feel that, and again, it's gonna come to each individual in their own unique way. But I feel that, especially those who are here born to help humanity raise consciousness, even though we're all here and we're going through the process, I believe, what I'm being shown is that certain individuals, part of their mission is to help do that. Those who are here to do that and they haven't done their work, shadow work, I feel that's going to get kicked up or not. So if somebody out there, if you believe that you're here to help raise, consciousness and you have been avoiding your own shadow, you're likely going to have some friends saying at you, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. And it's going to get amplified. Or I would say, and I'm sure Jenny would say the same thing, don't run away from it. There's no way to run. There's nowhere to run. It goes with you wherever you go. There's nowhere to run. You can't outrun it.
It literally is
No,
your shadow.
literally, exactly. So best way is to find some way to face it. Sometimes you can face it by yourself. Sometimes you need almost like a doula to help you through it because it's not easy. But yeah, running away, no longer an option. Yeah. In fact, I feel that the more we run away, the harder it's going to get because we have to face it. There's no way around it. There's no way around it. So here's a good question. Well, where is the free will in that? That's an interesting question. Where is the free will? What if I don't want to face it and that's my free will? Okay, then you don't face it, but life still goes on and it's just going to get harder and harder and harder because you're going to be resisting what's coming.
It's uncomfortable. Life gets
Yeah,
more and more and more and more and more and
yeah,
more
yeah,
uncomfortable.
yeah.
And
And
then you
I
finally get sick and tired of your own BS.
I see it particularly in one person. I'm not going to go into too many details where the person put themselves in such a position right now is that they're literally stuck. I could literally say they're stuck in a relationship with two babies under 2 years old, and it is obvious that it's just,
Mm,
and it's like, now what? You
yeah.
can't just say return your babies and say, "Can I have a refund, please? I want to start over
I,
again." Bye. And
yeah.
it's he, I'll say it because I feel like I'm being guided to say it. If you feel that it needs to be cut off, cut it off. But here's what's been coming lately, especially relationships. And it's been on my mind for a while. You know how it's easy to get caught in a new relationship believing you have something you don't because you are wanting something to be something, right? And what was coming to me specifically was how sometimes we get into relationships and I think many women do that. I don't know if guys do that as much. I believe many women do that because I've done it. We get into a relationship and we see things we don't like, but then we say, oh no, he's going to change for me. You
Yeah,
know where I'm going west with this, right? West, right? But would you
right.
say that that's a thing? It's a
Extremely
thing, right?
common, yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Extremely common, yes.
It's like, okay, so now you've married this guy or this gal, and you've avoided the thing you didn't like, and now you married that, and now you're mad because it's not something else. This is what you bought. This is what you bought.
Yeah.
And then it's in your face now. Now you have to deal with it,
Yeah.
right? Well, I thought he was going to change for me. Then you didn't marry who you had, you married your idea of what you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah.
And now you're stuck with the idea, and then you have your reality, and they're two different things. Now what? Well, if he loved me, he would change. Why should he change for you? Why should he change? Well, because he loves me. That maybe this is what he likes. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like,
Absolutely.
and so I don't know who needs to hear this or whatever, but it's
Yeah.
just like, it doesn't mean that people don't change. Absolutely, people can change. I am a product of it, so are you. But I did it for me.
Yes.
I did it for me. I had to do it for me. If I was to change for my partner just because, and it wasn't what I wanted for me, I
Hmm.
would be a resentful bitch,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because what you're basically saying is, I need you to be somebody different for me. Well, who are you to decide who the person gets to be? Either accept them or they don't. Doesn't mean they can't change, but you see what I'm saying? For some reason, I feel like I want to say that. So maybe that's somebody's shadows,
Maybe it is.
not really
I
seeing
love the
things for
stories
what
you
they
tell
are.
because I've been
Yeah.
watching you for years and you're like, I don't know why I'm telling this story. And then you tell the story and then
Yeah, yeah,
that's
yeah.
just what the person
Yeah.
needed to hear, right?
Yeah. And I believe that's, what I'm explaining is somehow ties into the shadow aspect, right?
Hmm.
So anyway, what I'm saying is that this particular person, uh, like it's just one thing after another. It's like the universe just is beating this person over the head.
Hmm.
And it's just, I have no idea how it could just get better. It won't get better on its own. I know that. And her partner is not really interested in changing himself because he has certain ideas of how things are supposed to be. And that's it.
Hmm.
It's like, oh God, I feel so bad for her. But those are her choices, right?
We all have to face our shadows, right?
Yeah. And eventually she's going to face it. She's going
She's
to have
gonna
to.
have to.
There's
It's
no way
when you
around
get
it.
so sick and tired of your own BS. That's what
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
when people come knocking on your door. What? Okay, what's this shadow work you're always talking about?
Yeah.
Because I am
How,
sick and
how,
tired of my own BS.
can I take the pill and take my shadows away? No, that's not how it works.
I know. Can I paint all those red flags
Yeah.
green, please?
Why do you think, I feel like this is important. Why do you think people are afraid of doing shadow work?
Mhm.
Why do you think that is?
Dark. Like it's even dark, right? Shadows, darkness. People are afraid of the dark, literally, like turning off a light.
Hmm.
Like it's
Hmm.
like it
Hmm.
feels like you're turning off
Hmm.
something inside you, but the ironic thing is it actually turns on the light.
That's what I'm getting at. It's almost like facing your shadows is somehow tied to some loss. Like if I look at, I'm going to lose something in the because think about it this way. If you knew, oh, shadow work is about me gaining lots of things, I don't think there would be as much resistance towards
Yeah.
it. So it must be something to do with loss. Right now, human psychology is wired to think change equals loss. That's the first thing we humans think about, right? So maybe it's because somehow we know that when we face our shadows, things are going to change. They're going to. Here's the thing, you can face your shadow and not change a damn thing. You don't have to do anything with your shadow. Think about it. You can face it and say, okay,
I see
you're
that.
my shadow. I'm going to do nothing with you. Just that alone completely shifts your relationship with your shadow.
Yeah.
Because you're saying to your shadow, okay, be there. It's you're now in charge, not your
I
shadow.
see you. Yeah, I see you.
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
want to be seen, right?
Yeah. And all of a sudden, when you're not as afraid of your shadow,
So does
well,
the
you're no
shadow.
longer
The
as afraid.
shadow just
Yes.
wants to be seen. The
You're
shadow
not
wants to be validated, just like we
you,
want to be
yeah,
validated. We got into
you
all this in our talk. It's just so
yeah,
fascinating how today's convo
yeah,
comes so full circle so many times. And I feel like the council, Yeshua, whoever it is that's showing up, is
yeah,
guiding us to do this over and over and over again. And I do it in my work. I know you do it in your
yeah.
work. And it might seem nauseating that we keep talking about this,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but I feel like that's where we are. And this is
It's
the,
like that's the thing that keeps us stuck. It's what we're holding on to. Yeah. They were very clear. I actually really liked the delivery. It was very clear. Bing, bing, bing. It was like
today
bing,
was
bing,
so
bing.
clear. I loved it.
Yeah.
And it just kept
Yeah.
coming back to the same thing.
Yeah.
Fascinating to me. And then the fact that you're seeing that in your client work as
Mm-hmm.
am
Mm-hmm.
I, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
And
I
it's
do
amplified right
I
now.
do feel like I keep like blabbering on about the same thing all the time. And the cosmos, although the cosmos do change, right? And there is a new moon and it's a different transit over here. It's all preparing us to do this shadow work that Pluto's been like begging us, telling us to do. So that we got this moon over here and Venus is doing this over here, Saturn's over there doing this thing, and that's all fine and dandy. But really, it's what Pluto is bringing in for the next generation. And how are we going to shift this generation? It
You know,
really does boil down to that.
what's coming to mind as you're saying it when you talked about, because I think you talked about like the moon, the new moon, and they gave us an idea of how to approach it, which was just like with awe. Were you asking that question?
Yeah, it's a new moon this
Yeah, yeah.
weekend.
Okay. So as you're talking now, what I'm getting is, let's say a person says, "Okay, I'm ready for a relationship. I'm just ready." And the new moon energy, let's use that analogy, says, "Okay, no problem. Face your stuff." And you're like, "Well, I asked for something great. Why am I getting this?" Ah, because this is keeping you away from that. And until you see it,
Yes.
you can go and bang your head against the wall. It's standing in front of you, not letting you get that.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not it letting you, it's you're
Yes.
not letting you. Yeah. So in my arrive in a package, we're like, oh, you mean I have to do some work? You
Yes.
don't
I
have
love
to do
that.
anything. You don't have to do anything. In fact, we humans, again, have this connection with idea of work needing to be hard. We were talking about it last time. We human tend to think, say the word work, automatically you assume it's hard. It's got to be right? It doesn't have to, but it's like we've been trained almost to think of work as hard.
Yes.
When you go climb a mountain and it's hard work, do you think of it as hard in terms of, oh my God, that is so hard? You're enjoying it, you're doing it, it's hard, it's part of the enjoyment. It's not a bad thing. It's a challenge, but it doesn't have to be bad or
Mhm.
hard work. Is effort required? Yes, of course. It requires effort to not believe in what is ultimately true and believe in some bullshit. That's still effort, right?
Yes.
We put effort into believing that we are small, for example. Okay, well, that's an effort. That's you're working at being small. Now, how crazy is that? Does that make sense?
Right. That's just it. It takes focus. That's something I talk about
Yeah.
in my book all the time about shadow work. It does take focus. So you can't just la la la. You can't just go back to the old knee-jerk reactions, right? It actually does take focus.
Hmm.
So work.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. Focus, awareness, attention. They gave me what's the word? An equation, and they said attention, no, focus plus attention equals results.
Nice.
Focus plus attention equals results. So if
Oh,
we focus in a certain direction and we give it attention, we feed it, then that will produce corresponding result, right?
nice. I
So
like
if
that
we,
formula.
yeah, I sort of was like, yeah, well, that's so simple. So if we continue to say, uh, uh, um, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, well, and you focus on that and you look at the things that are not good about you versus focusing on what is amazing about you, then you're just feeding that. You cannot have any experience other than that, right? But if
Right.
it's unconscious, we don't know we're doing that. I mean, how many people have you come to you say, I'm doing my work. I've done, no, this is my favorite. I've tried everything. Nothing works. Oh, honey, you have not tried everything. First of all, there's no need to try everything. Try one thing. Be aware, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So true.
Anyhow, I could talk about it for eons, as you can probably tell.
Today's conversation was amazing. I didn't get
Loved
a
it.
chance to thank the council and Yeshua and everyone,
I
but
did. I did.
Joanna did. And thank you for
Yeah.
watching. Make sure you give us your questions to us,
Hmm. Yeah.
feedback, all
One
that
of the
jazz, because
one
we
of
are
the
loving these sessions.
One of the things, and I'm always being very honest, I try not to get into politics and religion because, first and foremost, those are really hot topics, and there's a lot of generational bullshit that I still have in me, so it triggers me. But
Mhm.
oh, but that was interesting how Yeshua replied to that question when he with the women in church, and then I thought that was really elegant how he answered that question. Do you remember?
Yes.
I thought that was actually very clever how he answered it. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course that's true. Yes, duh. It makes perfect sense. Yeah. But anyway,
I love it.
all right.
Thank you for watching. This has been a blast. Okay.